The call came through at exactly 3 a.m. Mallorca time. Rafael Nadal, the legendary two-time Grand Slam champion, reached for his phone in the darkness, half expecting it to be routine news from his academy, perhaps an update on one of the promising young players he was mentoring, or a quiet note about the peaceful pace of his post-competitive life. What he heard instead jolted him wide awake. He sat upright in bed, eyes narrowing as the voice on the line delivered the unexpected crisis. The Upper Austria Ladies Linz Open, a respected WTA 500 tournament that had been part of the calendar for a full 35 years, was suddenly staring down the barrel of a major disaster. Advance ticket sales had completely fallen apart. Several key sponsors were on the verge of pulling their support entirely. According to the frantic tournament director, the cause was straightforward and unavoidable. Alex Eala was not in the main draw. The 20-year-old sensation from the Philippines had seen her world ranking slip sharply from number 29 down to number 45 following a tough one-sided defeat against Karolina Muchova during the Miami Open. Because of that drop, organizers had left her out of the main competition. Now, the entire event, which had counted heavily on her massive appeal to drive interest and revenue, was heading towards serious financial trouble. The same sponsors who had watched her jersey become the top-selling item across the entire Miami tournament were now pressuring the WTA to step in and fix the situation immediately. The ultimatum was crystal clear: find a way to include Eala or watch millions slip away. When Nadal learned what unfolded next, even the undisputed king of clay found himself momentarily stunned into silence. Back in April 2026, the city of Linz in Austria was preparing what should have been a joyful milestone. The Upper Austria Ladies Linz Open was marking its 35th edition, a significant achievement for any WTA tournament. Excitement was building around a strong lineup that included past title winners such as Ekaterina Alexandrova and Jelena Ostapenko. Organizers had proudly increased the prize money by more than $140,000 compared to the previous year. Facilities had been upgraded, marketing campaigns had been rolled out, and everything appeared perfectly positioned for a memorable and successful week of tennis. Then the early ticket sales reports landed like a cold shock, and the festive mood evaporated almost instantly. Organizers had based their optimistic forecasts on solid attendance from earlier seasons, but the actual pre-sale figures told a completely different and worrying story. Ticket sales had plunged by more than 40% from the year before. Sessions that traditionally sold out well in advance, including the quarterfinals, semifinals, and the grand final, were now projected to be barely half full. The projected losses were heavy enough to put the tournament's entire future at serious risk. Inside the meeting rooms, no one needed long explanations. The cause was obvious to every person present. The powerful Eala effect that had shaken previous events was noticeably absent this time. Alex Eala, the charismatic 20-year-old Filipina, who had rapidly become the most talked about and popular figure in women's tennis, was missing from the main draw. Her ranking had fallen after a disappointing fourth-round exit against Karolina Muchova in Miami, and without her name on the list, the passionate fans who had flooded stadiums from Melbourne to Miami simply chose not to show up. The irony stung deeply for the tournament staff. Over 3.5 decades, they had worked tirelessly to cultivate strong relationships with local businesses, media partners, and loyal supporters. They had poured resources into improving the venue, developing young talent programs, and running creative promotional efforts. Yet in the end, none of those long-term investments seemed to make a difference. The crowds had not come for the history of the event or the quality of the field alone. They had come specifically for Alex Eala. When the sponsors gathered for what was supposed to be a standard financial review and planning session for the following year, the atmosphere shifted dramatically the moment the latest attendance data was displayed. These corporate partners had been closely following the remarkable phenomenon surrounding Eala for several months. They had witnessed the staggering 48% jump in ticket sales in Dubai when she was in the draw. They had seen the Miami Open ticketing system overwhelmed and temporarily crash due to the huge influx of Filipino supporters. They had studied the merchandise reports showing that Eala's official jersey had outsold every other competitor in the entire field combined. Their conclusion was simple and ruthless. Wherever Alex Eala played, revenue followed. The Linz tournament, with its relatively modest baseline attendance and older core audience, was no longer meeting their expectations. Frustration boiled over quickly. The sponsors demanded immediate answers. When tournament leaders explained that Eala's ranking had dropped and she therefore did not automatically qualify for the main draw, the reaction was swift and uncompromising. "Get her in," one senior sponsor representative stated firmly. "We don't care about the technicalities. Use a wild card, create a special exemption, do whatever is necessary. If she is not competing, then we will not be contributing financially." That strong ultimatum sent ripples of alarm throughout the entire organizing team. WTA regulations were very specific. Wild cards were traditionally granted at the discretion of the tournament, but were usually reserved for promising local talents or rising players who had not yet secured their place through official rankings. At World No. 45, Eala did not fit the standard criteria. However, the situation facing the Linz Open was far from standard. The WTA suddenly found itself trapped in a difficult and delicate position. Internal conversations became heated and lengthy. Some senior officials insisted that the existing rules must be respected no matter the financial consequences. Others pushed back, arguing that rules existed to support and grow the sport, and if those same rules were actively damaging the sport's health and viability, then they needed serious reconsideration or adjustment. One source close to the discussions later shared anonymously with reporters. "The ranking system is only one way to measure a player's true worth. Eala has clearly demonstrated that she can pack stadiums, boost merchandise sales, and bring entirely new audiences into women's tennis. That kind of impact has real, tangible value. The WTA must find smart ways to recognize and reward it, whether through flexible wildcard policies, adjusted seating considerations, or even a broader review of how rankings reflect modern audience engagement." After days of tense debate, the WTA reached a groundbreaking decision. They officially announced that Eala would be awarded a wild card into the main draw of the Linz Open. The statement highlighted the exceptional circumstances and emphasized the young player's outstanding role in expanding the global reach and popularity of women's tennis. The announcement triggered an immediate wave of mixed reactions across the tennis world. Some voices criticized the move as an unfair bending of established rules to favor commercial interests. Others viewed it as a pragmatic and forward-thinking adaptation to the evolving realities of the sport in the modern era. For millions within the Filipino diaspora, Eala represented something far deeper than athletic achievement. She had become a shining symbol of inspiration and national pride, living evidence that a young girl from the streets of Manila could rise to compete under the brightest lights on the international stage. She embodied the powerful dream that dedication, sacrifice, and relentless hard work could lead to extraordinary success. Whenever she stepped onto the court, the atmosphere transformed. Stadiums took on the vibrant, passionate energy of a Davis Cup or Fed Cup final, with fans roaring not just for an individual, but for their entire country and its hopes. Marketing experts had been pointing out this unique connection for months. It was translating directly into impressive economic results. In Dubai, her participation had driven a remarkable 48% increase in ticket sales. In Miami, demand for her merchandise had dwarfed that of all other players combined. In Linz, her absence had pushed the tournament toward potential financial collapse. The contrast in numbers was impossible to ignore. Eala's presence consistently generated millions through tickets, merchandise, hospitality, and media coverage. Her absence created equally significant losses. The WTA, which had invested years in strategies to expand the game's global footprint, had unexpectedly discovered a player capable of delivering that growth in a very real and measurable way, yet they were still figuring out exactly how to manage and harness it fairly. For Eala herself, receiving the wild card into the Linz Open carried much more weight than simply earning a spot in one tournament. It felt like meaningful validation. It served as clear proof that her true value to the sport extended well beyond ranking points and technical eligibility rules. Her ranking had slipped from number 29 to number 45 after the points from her impressive 2025 semifinal run had expired following the Miami loss. Ahead of her now lay the full clay court season: Linz, Stuttgart, Madrid, Rome, and ultimately Roland Garros. The surface would present fresh and demanding challenges: slower pace, higher ball bounce, longer rallies, and the need for greater patience and clever tactical adjustments that hard courts rarely required. Yet she carried an advantage that no official ranking could ever calculate or capture: the passionate, unwavering support of an entire nation ready to follow her across the world. In Linz, she would enter the draw as the number 7 seed, positioned behind more established names like Alexandrova, Tolson, Samanova, Ostapenko, Navarro, and Raducanu. She would face opponents with deeper experience on clay, multiple titles on the surface, and plenty to prove. But she would also bring something unique that they lacked, the roaring energy of thousands of Filipino fans who had made the long journey to Austria specifically to cheer her on. In a recent podcast conversation with former World No. 1 Andy Roddick, Eala reflected on her mindset with calm maturity. I could end up winning the whole tournament or going out in the very first match. If it doesn't happen here, then it will happen at the next opportunity. I'm not defined by one result. Those words carried the quiet determination of someone steadily growing into a true champion. The Linz Open had teetered dangerously close to financial ruin. Ticket sales had collapsed dramatically. Sponsors had issued strong threats to withdraw their backing. And according to those running the event, the central reason was straightforward. Eala was not playing. Without her, the loyal and energetic crowds that had filled arenas worldwide simply stayed away. Thanks to the sponsor's firm intervention and the WTA's unprecedented response, the situation was turned around. Rafael Nadal, who had been personally training and guiding Eala at his academy for the past 7 years, observed the entire drama unfold from his home in Mallorca. I have never witnessed a tournament's entire financial stability hanging so heavily on one single player who wasn't even originally included in the draw, he remarked. This is truly unprecedented. As Eala now prepares to tackle the demanding clay swing starting in Linz and continuing through Stuttgart, Madrid, Rome, and Roland Garros, she carries with her a special kind of confidence. It comes from knowing that her worth to the sport cannot be fully measured or limited by ranking numbers alone. Her record on clay remains modest so far, and the so-called Czech curse on that surface has proven difficult to break. But she possesses something far more potent than any win-loss statistic could ever show, the deep, unbreakable love and support of a nation that refuses to stay silent when she steps onto the court. Was the WTA correct in granting Eala this wild card into the Linz Open? What are your thoughts on how the sport should balance traditional rules with modern commercial and audience realities? Share your opinions in the comments below. Subscribe to Rally Radar for daily WTA updates, in-depth match analysis, and stories that dive far beyond the final score. Because here at Rally Radar, every single day feels like match point.